The silence is driving me crazy.
All right, okay, I think we're live.
Okay. All right, very good. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Creating Resilient Supply Networks, partnering with small-scale farmers. My name is Ryan Zinn. I am the director of Grow Ahead and also the Fair Trade Coordinator for Dr. Bronner's, and I will be today's host. This is our first time using Google Live on air for a webinar, so I thank you all in advance for your patience. We will be trying out this new platform because we think it's a little bit more accessible and enjoyable for everybody. If you have any questions during the course of this webinar, please tune into Twitter. A question directly to Grow Ahead's Twitter account @GrowAhead, one word. And we're going to allow about 10 minutes or so, give or take, to cover questions at the end once we get through all three presentations. Today's going to be a great presentation, a great day for a webinar. We're going to be hearing from three fantastic speakers from Cooperative Coffees, the Fair Trade Federation, and Grow Ahead. Started with introducing you to your three speakers today. First off is Alexandra Groom. She is the program coordinator for Grow Ahead. She has spent the last 6 years working internationally, based in South Africa, Costa Rica, and Mexico. Most recently, she worked as program coordinator for Regeneration International. She is now helping start up Regeneration Canada. And Alex holds a BA in Environmental Studies and Geography. Next up, we will have Monica. Monica is the Director of Sustainability at Cooperative Coffees. And she has worked at the Montreal office since 2002. Prior to joining Cooperative Coffees, Monica worked with a variety of locally based development projects while living in Central America and Mexico from 1991 to 2000. Monica holds a master's degree in journalism, as well as a BA in international relations and German. And lastly, we'll have Chris Holt. Chris is the executive director for the Fair Trade Federation. Chris has dedicated much of his professional career towards strengthening fair trade businesses. Prior to joining the FTF staff in 2016, Chris spent over 5 years as a regional sales manager for 10,000 villages, working with fair trade stores in all sizes. And to kick it off, we're going to go ahead and hand over the presentation to Alex with Grow Ahead. Take it away, Alex.
All right. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Hi, everybody. Bear with me while I get this up. Okay, view full screen. Can everybody see my screen? I will assume so if I don't hear otherwise. So, all right. Well, thanks for everyone for joining today, and thanks for Ryan for hosting, and to Monica and Chris for joining as well. So today I'm going to talk about why there's a need to support climate resilience in farming communities and how Grow Ahead works to support this, with the hope of inspiring some of you all on this call. Monica and Chris are going to be sharing some more concrete stories from their networks later on, which I'm really looking forward to. But first, to start, a really brief history of Grow Ahead. So initially, Grow Ahead was started about 3 or 4 years ago as an initiative of Cooperative Coffees. It was designed primarily to pre-finance fair trade coffee containers. But over time, the market changed quite a bit, and the need for pre-financing wasn't as relevant. So in collaboration with Fair World Project, Grow Ahead was relaunched this year to provide support for small-scale farmers in their endeavors to address climate change. So as many of you on this call might know, our food and agriculture system is one of the main drivers of climate change, responsible for anywhere between 44 to 57% of global greenhouse gas emissions. But the reality is that it really doesn't have to be a leading cause of climate change. There are approximately 380 million small-scale farmers in the global south who produce 70% of the world's food on about a quarter of the Earth's farmland. So that's pretty remarkable. And one thing that's often overlooked is the very important role that small-scale farmers can play in cooling the planet. If they're practicing regenerative organic agriculture, they can in fact draw down greenhouse gas emissions and help mitigate climate change. So this was recently brought to the international scene through a report, that one of the biggest meta-studies done on how to reverse global warming. And what it revealed is that agriculture is in fact one of the top climate solutions. It comprises 10 of the top 20, there are 100, of the climate solutions. So that was a pretty big finding. Now, while agriculture is a major climate culprit as well as a major climate solution, there's also this need to make agriculture climate resilient. Small-scale farmers are among the most affected by climate change, even though they don't actually produce a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. I mean, we saw recently with hurricanes like Irma just totally devastate and wash away agricultural land in places like Cuba and Puerto Rico and in the Caribbean. absolutely devastating small-scale producers. So you can see that as pictured here in the New York Times. And so through farmer surveys with our parent organization, Fair World Project and CLAC, we discovered that there's a significant gap in capacity building, in resources for capacity building, as well as for funding for regenerative and agroecological solutions being implemented by small-scale farmers in Latin America and more broadly in the global South. Small-scale farmers receive very little support and from governments or markets, and they're very vulnerable to unfair market prices, increasing pest pressure, and climate instability. So, as I mentioned earlier, Grow Ahead relaunched this year as an online lending and funding program seeking to fill the resource and funding gap that we identified through surveys. So we connect individuals and organizations directly to family farmer organizations to support climate resilience initiatives as defined by producers. And our focus is really to enhance existing initiatives so that those projects can continue to flourish. Okay, so now we really have a good understanding, I hope that we have a good understanding of why small-scale farmers have a need for solidarity, but why should businesses be interested? I mean, why build resilient supply networks or supply chains? So I kind of wanted to draw attention to two main reasons. I'd be curious to hear others' thoughts on other reasons, but
Alex, real quick, we're getting notice that they can't quite see your screen.
Oh, okay. Sorry, guys. Should I reshare? Sorry, everybody.
I see it now.
Okay, sorry about that. I hope you didn't miss much. Should I repeat anything?
Let's see. I'm just looking right now on the YouTube channel. Thank you. Oh, perfect. There you are. If you go to full screen, and we should be good to go.
Okay, great. Sorry about that, everyone. Thanks for bearing with us. Okay, so why should businesses be interested in cultivating resilient supply networks? Well, for one, climate change is already affecting companies' overseas operations and supply chains, and this is only expected to worsen. And this is from a report published by the United States Department of Defense. So that would be one big reason. And secondly, quite frankly, it's just consumer demand. So there was a report that came out this year by New Hope Network. It was a survey of 1,000 consumers, carefully drawn to be representative of the US population. And it revealed that particularly millennials, but across the board, there's an increasing, consumers are willing to pay more for responsible business practices. They're willing to pay more for responsibly produced food. They're willing to support brands that have environmental and social responsibility. So this is really where the market is headed. And so there's not only a need for solidarity for small scale farmers, but it's also just plain smart for the future of business in order to appeal to your customer base. So there's really many ways that you can do this. I want to dive into a couple of the ways that we do at Grow Ahead in hope that maybe you can find similar ways to work in that, to incorporate these practices into your work or to support existing initiatives. So we work in 4 key areas with small scale farmer cooperatives, particularly fair trade ones. So farmer to farmer exchanges, scholarships, a revolving loan program, and a tree planting program. And our hope is really to be able to partner with businesses as they hope to enhance and develop ethical supply chains, whether it's supporting farmers or educating consumers. So let's just dive into these a little more deeply. So experience has shown that farmers around the world learn best from their peers. The farmer to farmer movement emerged from Central America in the 70s, and it has been responsible for the training of thousands of farmers, facilitating the exchange of practical experiences and best practices. This year, we were lucky to partner with Cooperative Coffees to fund a training on reforestation for cooperatives from across Latin America through a combination of business and foundation grants. And this training was pictured here, photo taken by Monica. Maybe she'll have the opportunity to tell you a bit more about it later. And similarly, we have our second farmer to farmer training funded by the Grow Ahead program set to take place in Ghana, which will bring together cocoa producers to focus on issues of pests and diseases. So we really see farmer to farmer trainings as an opportunity to plant a seed for developing and scaling out climate resilience tactics quickly and effectively and in culturally appropriate ways. So we'll hear about other businesses using this methodology later on from Chris. Our second key area of work is scholarship. So in consultation with farmer organizations, we realized that there's a huge need to provide funding for farmers to attend advanced training so they can then go back and train their cooperatives, farmer organizations, and communities. And so we were fortunate to fund our first round of scholarships with COMSA in Marsala, Honduras this year. They have a great program called the Organic Diploma, and they bring together farmers on an intensive 2-week training process where they're trained on regenerative agriculture. So we really recommend supporting education in agroecology, either in your supply chain or supporting existing initiatives for scholarships. Next is loans. So one thing that was brought to our attention is that farmer organizations they lack the capital and financing to be able to implement projects that build up climate resilience in their communities. So for example, a drawdown identified agroforestry and tree intercropping as 2 great climate solutions. However, the reality is that in order to implement 1 hectare of dynamic agroforestry, it costs about $1,000 per hectare. So our hope is really to provide, to facilitate loans at reasonable rates for organizations and to really enhance food security and also sequester carbon. So actually, we're really happy to announce that soon we're going to be accepting applications from farmer organizations for loans, and we're also going to be looking for some willing lenders. So stay tuned. And then finally, tree planting in agroforestry systems. So deforestation for agricultural expansion causes 15 to 18% of global greenhouse gas emissions. And so we really see agroforestry as a solution that can work for farmers and also for the planet. With agroforestry, you get the ecological benefits of a forest with the food production benefits of a farm. So we partner with small-scale farmer organizations. Our first partner is in Samoa to plant trees in agroforestry systems to support community food security and carbon sequestration. So you could take part in this campaign or look at ways in incorporating funding for seedlings and developing agroforestry models in your supply networks. And so finally, I just want to end on our approach is the realization that we're a small organization, and our goal is really to fund and support people and projects that we would consider to be pollinators. So in the same way that bees go around and pollinate hundreds, if not thousands of farms, our goal is to support farmers and organizations that will scale out and pollinate great climate resilience tactics within their communities and regions. So again, thank you all for giving me the opportunity to share with you a little bit more about Grow Ahead. I hope you're inspired and happy to reach out, answer any questions that you may have. So feel free to reach out. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more from Monica and Chris.
Great. That was fantastic, Alex. Thank you so much. The work you're doing at Grow Ahead is looking very, very exciting. One thing, just a quick reminder, you can go ahead and post out questions in the live chat box, either on the YouTube page, or you can do it at our Twitter account, which again, that's @GrowAhead. Next, we're going to pass it on to Chris with the Fair Trade Federation, and he is going to provide us with a presentation on the good work that they're doing.
Okay, so I guess I'm up. All right, so let me share my presentation here. Hold on one sec. And lots of fun special effects are coming your way. Okay. All right, so hopefully you can all see that. Yes, excellent. Well, great.
Not really quite yet, Chris.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Got it?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. So we should be good to go. Well, great. I just wanted to thank Alex and Brian from Grow Ahead to be able to be here on this webinar to talk about the great work that they're doing. Really excited about Grow Ahead, and it allows citizen consumers to lots of different and increasingly more options to be able to express their values in the marketplace. And I'm just so excited that Grow Ahead is existing and is doing the work they're doing. So thanks so much. So as I said, I'm Chris Solt. I'm the executive director of the Fair Trade Federation. So I just wanted to mention that I'm here representing other businesses. I can't necessarily speak with great authority of all the individual details of all of our businesses, but I have prepared something to give you a portrait of some really great examples of some of our fully authentic and verified fair trade businesses in this area of building climate resiliency in their supply chains. So first, I want to just really quickly go over, for those of you who might not be familiar with the Fair Trade Federation. So the Fair Trade Federation is a trade association that strengthens and promotes North American organizations fully committed to fair trade. The Federation is part of a global fair trade movement, building equitable and sustainable trading partnerships and creating opportunities to alleviate poverty. So just a quick thing, like if you ask somebody on the street, what is fair trade? I'm sure of those who answered, you probably get lots of different answers. But here's one to start with, right? A traditional fair trade definition, a trading partnership based on dialogue, transparency, respect that seeks greater equity in international trade, right? And that's fantastic. And the Fair Trade Federation fully is aligned with this, but it's so much more. Fair Trade Federation is a community of businesses committed to 360 degrees of fair trade. That's the way our members describe the way in which we practice fair trade, on which they're based on 9 principles. We work closely with small farmers and artisans to ensure good wages, safe working conditions, environmental responsibility, and economic growth. And they're all screened and verified based on all 9 Fair Trade Federation principles and uphold the highest standards of fair trade business practice. We also, we're a 501c6 trade association for you nonprofit nerds out there, not a 501c3. So if you're interested in exploring that, you can go to our website, fairtradefederation.org, and learn a lot more. So, we are, again, a community of businesses that only practice fair trade. We work with small scale farmers and producer groups, specifically in handmade. These are organizations that could never be certified with a fair trade certified logo. And we're really only small to medium-sized organizations and businesses, not multinational corporations or large-scale farming or manufacturing at all. So just a little bit of demographics on our community. About 245 member businesses, 60 for-profit, 40 non-profit, but all are fully dedicated to fair trade. About 9% of our membership, which is growing, are what we call food and farm, and those are the farmers and small producers we're going to be talking about a little bit. We're a community. It's really a fun community. It's really a vibrant community. These are some women that are having some fun on International Women's Day. We also, as a community, we get together and we feel that dialogue and physically showing up to provide leadership in the fair trade world is really important. We hold a conference every year, and we had one in Burlington in 2016, Louisville this last year, and we're having another conference soon, which I'll reveal in a sec. In Burlington, we had a lot of fun, and in the bottom left hand, there's Ben and Jerry's. Not eligible to be a member, of course. They're a big corporation, but they do great work and get their almonds from Canaan, Palestine, which is a wonderful organization doing incredible work, and specifically with Ben and Jerry's almonds. Just wanted to plug our conference really quick. It's happening next March in Westminster, Colorado. Very excited, and you can see details on our website. Another thing that's really unique about our community is the role of stores, right? They're not just places to go and buy products. This is where a lot of advocacy and education and dialogue about these issues we're talking about today, environmental issues and climate resiliency and gender equality, all of these issues are discussed on the floor of these stores every day. They're more than just a store. It's really, really essential. And I just wanted to highlight that. That's unique about our community. Another thing that we do with the Fair Trade Federation is that we try to build awareness. We promote all of our members and the great work that they do. We publish a store and cafes guide so that customers can find fully verified products. And also, we're working to build a mark of trust so that when customers are trying to find products that are aligned with their values in the consumer marketplace, they will be able to increasingly recognize the Fair Trade Federation mark as one that they can fully trust. And just to highlight Cafe Campesino, in the top right is in Americus, Georgia. They're a CoOp Coffee's member, great stuff. And Level Ground, they're a wonderful company in Victoria, British Columbia, and I'll highlight them a little bit in a little bit as well. I know I get really excited when I talk about our member businesses, but just wanted to give you a little bit of a portrait of our community and how we're a little bit different than some of the fair trade that you all might be aware of. So the reason we're here is I wanted to highlight a couple of our members that do incredibly great work and really specific examples that relate to our topic today, which is cooling the planet, right, by creating resilient supply networks. It's very exciting. One of them is Just Haiti. It's a very small organization, but does great work. I'll just use the president's word of Just Haiti, Kim Lamberty. She reported that 4 of their 7 farmer communities that they work with were destroyed by Hurricane Matthew last fall, losing most of their tree cover. The coffee trees were damaged, but in most cases not destroyed. It was the larger shade and fruit trees that were lost. These communities were already heavily deforested, leaving them highly vulnerable to the consequences of climate events, including flooding and soil erosion. And at the request of their farmer co-ops, they raised funds to replant the trees and to improve and increase the number of diversity of the tree cover. Just Haiti works with a local agronomist to train cooperatives on how to create and care for tree nurseries, pictured here. They usually work with in-country talent to train their growers. They provide scholarships for cooperative members and their families for university education in agronomy. And the scholarship students work with the agronomist to plant trees and use GPS tracking to monitor tree health. Then the students pass this knowledge on to the local farmers. So lots of great training going on. So far, Just Haiti has supported the creation of 7 tree nurseries. As I said, one is pictured here, and new ones will be added. And their goal, which is really great and very similar to what Grow Ahead is doing, planting 100,000 trees. About half will be coffee, and the rest a variety of shade and fruit trees. It's very, very exciting. The next FTF member I wanted to highlight is Dean's Beans. Most recently, Dean's Beans has been working on income generation for its member farmers. And Allison from Dean's Beans reported that this is a farmer-to-farmer initiative that looks to increase the promotion of fruit trees on land previously used for single agricultural crops like coffee. This is a part of a farmer-to-farmer strategy to mitigate the environmental impacts produced in the coffee production process and help with the adaptation of climate change. Plus, it has a delicious nutritional and economic benefit as well, as you can see by this young person here holding a star fruit, which I'm quite a fan of. A new fruit tree nursery was installed by farmers at the Pangoa Cooperative, which works with Dean's, to generate seedlings that are then distributed to local farmers. These seedlings are then used to grow a wide variety of local fruit. The fruit trees mitigate the negative impacts of soil erosion and deforestation, as well as protect the land from hurricane winds. The fruit will then be harvested to provide both nutritional benefits for families and supplemental income in the form of jams and fruit to sell in the market throughout the year. And one thing that I think is really fascinating and great, and I think fun about Dean's is, this is Dean right here. They love compost and know the value of compost. And that is him sitting on a mountain of compost. In 2004, Dean's moved to using 100% compostable packaging. So all of the bags and everything that you buy Dean's Beans coffee in is also compostable. And I'd also want to add that Level Ground trading company also has the same approach to their packaging. It is 100% compostable, and I just saw it firsthand in Victoria in October. It is really amazing. The next member I want to highlight is Decor Essentials. Decor's triple bottom line business model has trees at its root. By growing and creating international markets for forest products, including shea, oil palm, neem, moringa, and baobab, Decor is supporting communities in the Republic of Benin and valuing these trees as sustainable resources. So far, they have provided extensive training for nearly 1,500 organic Baobab producers. Through their training program, they facilitate the sharing of resource management best practices to sustain and maximize the tree's benefits, including agroforestry and indigenous land management. With this shared knowledge, the trees hold significant value to their producers due to the yields and the secondary benefits of maintaining soil fertility, controlling erosion, helping to regulate climate, and more. Adacora's Baobab fruits dry naturally on the trees and then are traditionally harvested by the producer families. Adacora buys the whole fruits directly from them, which are then processed by the Adacora Fair Partnership Women's CoOp. These women apply age-old indigenous methods of transformation in their own controlled, clean facility to produce this fine, nutritious, delicious, and versatile powder. As you can see, one of the women from the co-op is pictured here with the dried Baobab fruits. Highly recommend that powder if you're not familiar with it. Okay, so the last example I want to show is not necessarily having to do with a food company or a natural products company, but handcrafts. So Yayasan Bali is an artisan cooperative that works with 10,000 villages. And 10,000 villages is one of our founding members. So Yayasan Bali works with individual craftspeople to find new markets outside of Bali. The cooperative works only with small-scale producers who emphasize gender equality, provide safe working conditions, use environmentally sustainable raw materials, and do not exploit women or children. Since many of their crafts are made of wood, Bali supports reforestation by supplying artisans with softwood tree seedlings. So over the last 10 years, the accelerated destruction of Indonesia's vast forests has created both national and international concern. Recent reforms in forest policy and legislation have made some progress in the regulation of the industry. On the island of Java, production forests, mostly of teak and sonorkeling, which is kind of like an Indian rosewood, have evolved into strictly managed plantations. Other rainforests are protected as nature reserves. Despite these positive steps, however, illegal logging and non-compliance with Forest Stewardship Council guidelines remain an ongoing problem at corporate-owned plantations as well as in protected forests. Much work remains to ensure the protection of Indonesian forests while also enabling livelihoods for many of the people involved in both the lumber and wood carving industries. Together with environmental groups, Indonesia is looking at various models of community-based forest management to work toward these goals. And as I mentioned, as a founding Fair Trade Federation member, 10,000 Villages seeks to purchase products made from woods that are able to be quickly replenished. As such, many of their partner groups in Indonesia are involved in reforestation programs. And pictured here is one plot where that had been a monocrop and was reforested with fast-growing Biggio Woods. So here's a new canopy that actually is only 5 to 7 years old. It's pretty cool how fast some of these trees work. So anyway, that concludes my presentation. I know I talked very fast, so I hope you were able to keep up with me. This is really exciting work and really super important work as we all try to express our values in the world by working with and interacting with these great organizations, including ones like Grow Ahead.
Great, Chris. Thank you so much. That was fantastic to hear about all the great work that Fair Trade Federation members are actually doing on the ground. Not only their commitment to fair trade and climate resiliency, but also their commitment to really innovating on many aspects, not only kind of on the ground working with producer partners, but also in terms of packaging and things like that. So that was great to hear about all the fantastic work that's going on right now. Next, we're going to pass it along to our last presentation, Monica Furl with Cooperative Coffees. Take it away, Monica.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So first of all, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today, and a special thanks to Grow Ahead for bringing this all together. So this is one of my favorite topics ever, and for me, one of the most remarkable and inspiring aspects of this work around together with small farmers, cooling the planet, understanding more around our roles in climate change, is that it gives us the opportunity to acknowledge and to highlight so many amazing people and so many great experiences already underway, and which are demonstrating a regenerative path forward. But before I get into our work in particular and our work together with Grow Ahead, I did want to underscore the magnitude of both the problem and the opportunities that we see in the context of coffee. So just wait 1 second. I'm going to try and bring up a couple of slides. Are we seeing this? Yeah. So hopefully you're looking at Oscar in his fields. Are we seeing this? So great. So I guess to start with, worldwide, we consume 2 billion cups of coffee each day. The International Coffee Organization estimates an annual coffee exports at around $12.7 billion per year. So that's a lot of coffee, and that's a lot of money. Meanwhile, coffee industry research is showing that under current intensive production practices and with the current trends that we see in climate change, we can expect about 50% of current coffee lands to become rendered inadequate for production by 2050. So that's a lot of people whose lives will be negatively impacted by climate change if we don't do something. And I'm not only talking about the millions of small-scale farmers who will be suffering from loss of livelihood, but also the traders, the roasters, the people all through the supply chain who will also see some negative impact, readjustment, readaptation, and also possibly consumers. So yes, the challenge is daunting, but I also see that there's an enormous opportunity for inquiry and for learning. I would say, imagine if with every cup of coffee, a consumer is asking just one question, whether it's, how is this coffee produced? Was it shade grown? Is it organic? Is it regenerative? Or how is the farmer and how are workers paid? Were they paid fair prices? Is this all sustainable? So there's a huge amount of learning that we can have just if we look a little deeper into our cup of coffee and think about where that's coming from. For me, I had a huge aha moment, and this is after more than 20 years working in coffee. As Ryan had mentioned, I started working with coffee farmers while I was living in Chiapas for 6 years, and then I've been working in the field both as a buyer, producer relations, and now as the director of sustainability for CoOp coffees for quite some time now. But I had this huge aha moment when I'm standing in the field of Oscar Alonso, who you hopefully are seeing on the screen right now. And so he's a member of COMSA, Mercado Orgánica in Honduras. And what you're looking at here is facing his neighbor's crops. He's surrounded by these sickly trees that are being impacted by this leaf rust. This was a crisis that swept across Latin America in 2013 and had devastating impact on coffee farmers across all of Latin America. Within our own CoOp Coffees producer network, we saw production dropping from between 30 and 80% on many farmers' fields. So that, of course, is a devastating impact for small scale and often marginal farmers who have limited income and livelihoods to see that cut in half or even, the majority of their income lost for the entire year. But then here was Oscar, and he's standing in his field, and his trees they're green and they're lush and they have incredible production, some of the best production I'd ever seen in my life in coffee. And so, of course, I was asking myself, what are his secrets? And what I discovered, speaking with him, discovered very quickly, his secrets were quite simple, actually. And number one, he was working his soil. He was working really hard for a year prior to this crisis. So his fields were prepared for a shock, and he was bringing back a rich diversity of microbiological life into his soil. And secondly, instead of following industry advice and spraying with additional toxic fungicides to combat this disease, he had been spraying his leaves with a beneficial bacteria. So these are bacteria that belong in nature. And so essentially what he was doing is that he was harnessing the power of natural systems and allowing nature to combat an invasive fungus, and his fields were essentially left untouched. So that shocking contrast in image between devastation and flourishing side by side sent me onto a fast and steep and fascinating learning curve, which has brought some of this, a new way of thinking, to CoOp coffees as well. And it's led us on to an amazing collaborative work with many farmer innovators from across our network, and into some amazing allies like Grow Ahead. Maybe I'll just give a quick introduction to CoOp coffees. We are a cooperative of coffee roasters. We're 20 roasters from across Canada and the United States, all small scale, organic and fair trade, very directly linked to the producer communities that we purchase from. The reason for CoOp coffees coming together was to allow small roasters to have, to leverage their voice and to leverage their purchasing power and to have more influence on how the terms of trade actually get negotiated and defined. And we like to pride ourselves in always staying a few steps ahead of what's considered minimal standards, even in fair trade, and really in dialogue with farmers, trying to understand their challenges, their financial needs, production issues, and really putting a lot of emphasis and importance on long-term relationships. So, which means for us that if a partner we've been working with for the last 10 or 12 or some of them even 17 years now suddenly has a problem in productivity, that's not just a problem for the farmer, it's also an enormous problem for us. We've worked many years, long and hard, and we've established very good understandings between the roasters and the producers to understand what's needed in trade, quality and productivity and delivery and the communication. So of course we were, when we saw how much so many of our partners were being affected by leaf rust in this recent crisis, but there's always issues in productivity, and they're becoming much more frequent and much harder felt with all of this erratic weather that's linked to climate change. So so while we're seeing the challenges that the farmers are facing, at the same time, we're also seeing some of the responses that are being put forward by industry. And so much of this was sort of quick fix, but not really getting to the core of the problem, getting down to the, there were a lot of recommendations to increase, unfortunately, chemical spraying. And we were actually concerned that some of our partners walk away from organics. But what we saw in fairly short order is that actually the organic farmers were the ones who were able to withstand much of this devastation, more so than farmers who had been dependent upon chemicals, because what they were doing was actually reducing the capacity of their fields and their soil to be able to withstand any kind of shocks. So we decided after internal discussion that what we were going to do is a quick fix, but really try and create a framework where we were working with our to confront problem, and that larger problem is and it's climate change. On the other hand, it's farmers not necessarily not having enough income in order to invest properly in their training that members need in to acquire the right kinds of organic supports and different kinds of equipment and supplies in order to follow through with some best practices in organics. And that would be learning about composting, farmers really understanding what is in their soil, build it up. So we do rely very much on farmer-to-farmer exchanges. That's been sort of the core of our producer support for many, many years. And so what we did in the beginning of January was, with the roasters and our internal board of directors, came to an agreement on what we're calling our Carbon, Climate, and Coffee Initiative. And essentially what that is, we decided to put an actual, a voluntary obligatory carbon tax on all of our coffee purchases. So, and so what that means is if we're purchasing $11 million of green coffee, that's unroasted coffee from producers, that's automatically creating something of a fund to help distribute back down into our supply chain. And that's what's helping us to have an ongoing series of either project support or training support that that's bringing farmers together. For example, farmers have now come to visit Comsa through the Diplomados Orgánicos or through a regional exchange to see feet on the ground, hands in the soil, what farmers have been able to successfully do in order to combat not just Roya, but improving the productivity, the quality, better use of natural resources. And it's been an extremely rewarding experience to see the way a one-week visit can arm farmers with enough knowledge and enough guidance to go back home and then to begin to experiment, to trial in their own growing conditions some of the practices that they've seen, adapt that to their actual growing situations, and then to come up with their own innovation. And so it's created a networks of innovators, and that's just really helped to spiral out a lot of new knowledge and exchange, and also really lovely camaraderie amongst and between farmer organizations, and then also with a growing network of allied organizations. So CoOp Coffees, with Grow Ahead, with Taking Roots, another organization here in Canada that's been really strong in reforestation and is accompanying us in sort of tracking our carbon footprint, that will be then also including into some environmental service offset payments as well. And so it's demonstrating a different approach to confronting the problems. And it's much more bottom up and sort of stepping away from top-down remedies. And that's what we've seen, I guess, more than anything, just a little bit of resources that are being invested in an appropriate way, and the amount of snowballing and spiraling and replication we can see, as Alec was saying, that the pollinator effect has been truly inspirational to see the impact of empowered and farmer-driven research and innovation. And that's what we're betting on as an avenue to getting towards a much more sustainable, both production systems and also producer support in what we can do in with our daily habits of whether it's consuming, whether it's purchasing, whether it's roasting. But we all have a role to play, and that we're finding some very interesting avenues to join into a larger movement that's helping to push us all towards a much more sustainable and I'd like to say regenerative lifestyle. So that's kind of a nutshell of where we're at. I hope you can see on our website, coopcoffees.coop, we have quite a bit of information, both in the blog section about sort of where we've come from as far as our learning path, some of the challenges of climate and coffee, some of the good experiences, both from the producers on the ground, but also some of the different work that roasters are already underway installing solar energy at their roasting plants, or really choosing energy efficient roasting equipment, their recyclable bags and cups and everything that can be recycled, whether it's at the roastery or the coffee shops that many of our roasters own and operate. So I would invite anyone to go and take a look. You'll also see the list of our members, which stretch from the Yukon across Canada and then down across the Midwest of the US down to Florida, with 16 stops along the way. So you can get a sense of who makes up CoOp Coffees, and then also the list of the incredible producer organizations that we work with. It's about 20 stable partners in producer co-ops in 13 different countries. So it kind of gives you a glimpse of kind of who we are and what we're able to do when we step forward with good intentions, wanting to build partnership and wanting to be a constructive part of this exploration towards a better way of producing and living. So I think I will leave it at that for now. I'll leave a few minutes here. We have a few minutes left for questions. And yeah, so I think I'll
Great,
stop
Monica.
here for now. Thank you.
Great, Monica. Thank you so much. It's really inspiring to see all of the great work that you and Cooperative Coffees are doing on the ground with your partners. And yeah, it's just very inspiring. Hopefully some of the bigger players can take note of how a true equitable relationship can be played out. So folks, we've got some time now for some questions and answers with our speakers. I want to remind you that you can ask questions directly to Grow Ahead's Twitter account at grow_ahead. Additionally, you can also ask questions through the live chat box on the YouTube channel. But I think one thing I would like to ask the group is, in your experience and looking forward to the future, what do you see like the one biggest step or opportunity we have for really scaling out climate resilience on the ground? So I think maybe we'll start and go in order with Alex, then Chris, and Monica.
Sure. So I just, for me, I think farmer-to-farmer trainings are really the best way to scale out what's happening on the ground, because people do learn best from their peers. So that would definitely be the top one. And I really think in terms of addressing climate change, it's really about changing minds and changing perspectives more so than anything else. So for me, and as I think from Grow Ahead's opinion too, that is definitely one of the quickest and most effective ways, and also like culturally appropriate, as I mentioned in my presentation, to scale out agroecology or regenerative agriculture, or however you want to refer to these really ecological practices of agriculture and climate resilience.
Very good. Thank you so much, Alex. That's great. One, Monica, if you can just stop sharing your screen so that way we can have it highlight those speakers. Yeah. That would be great.
Yeah, I was
as much as we like looking at your beautiful face.
Oh my God, I was trying to avoid exactly that, but am I unshared?
Oh, I think so. All right, great. Good. Okay, well, since you've got the hot mic, why don't we go with you, and then we'll finish up with Chris on this question.
Super. Yeah, so for scaling, there's so much potential. Just prior to this call, I was trying to update my allies list and kind of how do we bring people together in order to strengthen some of our project work with farmers. And, you know, it's on the one hand, so encouraging to see how many both researchers and funders, NGOs, traders, you know, so many people thinking about what can we do. And then the challenge, I would say, is to find who to start with, you know, getting like-minded organizations together to move things forward. And my experience has been that once things start moving forward, it's amazing how many people want to be a part of that. So I would say let's not lower our standards and expectations of ourselves. Let's do really great work. Let's have fun at it. Really partnering in a very honest and open way with our producer partners. They need to be driving this. I like to talk about bringing complementary information to the table. Not one of us has the answers. We all have a piece of the answer that we need to be humbly offering to the table of discussion, and then how can we bring this together to move things forward and let it grow. Not try and control too much the direction, but let it take some natural, healthy directions forward, and be very open and transparent about it. Be inviting, and let's bring more people to the table. You were saying, Ryan, let's hopefully Co-op coffees can serve as an example to the industry. Nothing I would love more than to see other traders taking our ideas and making them better, do it better, challenge us to even up the ante more, and let's get that into a constructive competitive cycle, as opposed to what we often see, sort of downward spiraling. So I think there's huge potential, and I think we need to be good at reaching out and maintaining a collaborative spirit.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Monica. All right, Chris, what do you think? What do you think are some of the one kind of big low-hanging fruits to really maximize this potential?
Yeah, I'd have to mirror both what Alex and Monica said. In particular, what Monica was saying. I have initially thought, when you asked the question, wow, there's two main things. One is kind of internally, and then one is external. The internal is collaboration, bringing people together to collaborate. And collaboration and competition are not in opposition when you're talking about climate change, right? We're all on the same planet, and even in the industry that's not necessarily my industry. That's really more Monica's thing. But I know that from what I've heard is that can actually drive innovation. When you collaborate and share best practices on the ground, everyone can benefit. So that's the kind of internal. Externally, I'd say and from where I sit, I want to see more demand created. I want to see more customers asking questions, like looking past the label, when not just like look past even a fair trade verification, fair trade certification. Try to be as aware of your choices as possible, and then understand that everything that you do and you consume has an effect on the planet. And more understanding. I mean, this is not some big kumbaya, big picture thing. This is really quite real. That we're all seeing the impacts of climate change and how it's going to affect everything about our lives. So creating demand for these fully resilient products and organic and fair trade, and anything we can possibly do to express ourselves in the marketplace that aligns with our values and beliefs.
Well, that was great. Thank you both. So I guess maybe since we don't have a whole lot of questions right now coming into the chat box, maybe just to close us out, the one thing, I guess the last question I have for all three of you, what has been your experience in terms of communicating both this solution that we've talked about, all this great on the ground collaboration, confronting climate change? What has been the one message or the one takeaway that you've been able to communicate either to buyers or retailers or student groups, so that way we can really get much more traction out there in the broader fair trade movement? Maybe we'll start with you, Chris, and then we'll go in reverse order.
Wow, that's $64 million question right there. Really, again, it's understanding impact. Everything from an end consumer giving something as a gift to someone, how that will impact someone else's consciousness, how what you purchase impacts what is going to be produced, because people are wanting to supply what people are demanding. But yeah, I'd just say overall, kind of awareness of impact.
All right, thanks, Chris. What about you, Monica? What do you think? Oh, I think you are muted, Monica.
Is that good? Am I on? Great. Yeah, I guess if there were one phrase, I would say we need to embrace our power. And I would say across, similar to what Chris was saying, consumers have enormous amount of power. And I know it's it's like a minefield trying to understand, okay, what is actually behind the product. And that's where I think we can really step forward. And there's some amazing examples of extremely traceable, transparent, tracking back to where products have come from. And as traders and retailers, we need to really, I think, put more effort there. We need to inform ourselves. We need to inform our staffs and teams so that we can really give that clear message. There's lots of proof that intensive organic agriculture is helping. There's lots of great learning tools. We need to make those more available in our shops, and whether it's in the dialogues or with visuals, and really helping people to see that small gestures add up very quickly. And especially in the times that we live, where sometimes it just feels like, oh my God, the problems are so big, and what can I do as a person? Here's something that's easy, and it's just a win-win. So I think we really need to encourage more of that.
Great, Monica. Thank you so much. And Alex, take us away. What do you think?
All right. So I think the key message, and I'll speak from my personal perspective, is really, as a millennial, I studied environmental studies and geography, and I sort of left school hearing about all of the issues that we're facing and how hopeless everything is. And a couple of years later, I discovered regenerative agriculture and the fair trade movement. And really, I think the key message that got through to me is that we can each make a difference. It is possible. There are amazing solutions happening all over the world, and I think people are becoming more aware of them. And I've seen this kind of hope translate to others who learn about this as well. And so I think that's really the key message is, like, we can do this. The solutions are all around us. We see this in the drawdown 100 solutions for climate. I mean, we can reverse climate change if we just implement existing relatively easy, I wouldn't say easy actually, existing technologies, and using our existing knowledge. So I think that's really the key message for me that got me motivated, and I'm seeing it motivate others as well. So, yeah.
Well, great. Thank you all for answering those questions. I think we're coming up near the end of our time. So I think we're going to wrap up now, but I wanted to thank everybody, Alex, Monica, and Chris, for your wonderful presentations and taking time today to share about your experiences. I think, like each of you has said, amongst all of us, there's some solutions here that we can really look to push forward. I hope everybody is very inspired with the presentations today. And I just want to note that this webinar has been recorded, and we'll be able to share with everybody in a follow-up email. And I just want to thank everybody for joining today, and please stay tuned for future webinars. Have a great day. Thanks so much, folks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.